With Dead City and Daryl Dixon starting to be wrapped up, we have to assume some kind of ending is imminent for The Walking Dead, and in turn, that means we all have to say goodbye to the characters we grew up watching. The main show started in 2010 and ran up till late 2022. Over this 12-year span, we've seen multiple spin-offs and hundreds of characters, but where do we go from here? It's no secret that in recent years, viewership and overall interest in the franchise has been slowly dwindling, and although shows like The Ones Who Live sparked excitement back for many fans, it received mixed reviews and felt more like a speedrun of events rather than a well-paced story. Now, there are rumblings, very faint rumblings, but rumblings nevertheless, of a season 12 of the main show. But in my opinion, no matter how much I want this to happen, getting the cast all back together is highly unlikely. Now, that being said, I do think we will see some form of reunion between characters like Daryl, Maggie, Michonne and Rick, whether that will be on Daryl Dixon or Dead City, or maybe even a separate spin-off in the future, I don't know, but I do think it's coming. But despite it starting to feel like we are entering the latter stages of this franchise, Scott Gimple is very vocal about his big plans for multiple spin-offs in the future. So in today's video, I'd like to discuss what the future holds for The Walking Dead and what I would like to see as a fan. So without further ado, let's get into the video. Now, first of all, I'd like to go over some very exciting news. There are rumours that a Walking Dead spin-off show based in Australia is on the horizon. Now, filming hasn't started yet, but it could commence later this year. Now, this for me is the most exciting news I've heard since the announcement of The Ones Who Live. It's a chance for a fresh new setting with a whole new cast to paint a unique story. What I'd really love to see from this show is something like we got from Fear the Walking Dead in the early seasons. We are now like 20 something years into the apocalypse in our current timeline, so let's just go back to the basics. I want to see the fall of society and our new group battle it out in the harsh and unforgiving landscape that is Australia. Now, the title of this show is rumoured to be The Walking Dead Bushman. Me personally, I'm not a huge fan of that title, but I might come round in the future. However, if I see this show announced with Daryl, Rick or any other character from the main show, I will be fuming and I might even stick my fork in a toaster. Because if Scott Gimple tries to milk these characters anymore, I seriously worry about the future of the franchise. Not only is it vastly unrealistic for them to somehow end up in Australia, but I mean Daryl's washed up in France and Carol's flown a tiny plane across the Atlantic Ocean, landing in France as well. We've just seen enough of these far-fetched stories. Go back to what made the show so brilliant and revolutionary in its early days. It was a family drama centered around the end of society. It's now gotten to the point where characters such as Rick and Daryl are without question some of the best in television history, but the longer they draw out these stories, the more tarnished their legacies will become, which is such a shame. Okay, enough about what I don't want them to do, and let's talk about what I do want them to do. As mentioned, I want them to start right from the beginning. Let's see the fall of society in detail from another country's perspective. How did Australia deal with the virus? Was napalm dropped in the major cities? And with Australia being more spaced out than the USA, did it mean some remote towns managed to hang on for longer? Did we see any variant walkers? And most importantly, has a kangaroo ever fought a walker? I mean, come on, it would be rude not to show this. This is an Australian-based zombie TV show. It's a non-negotiable that I must see on my TV screen. But in all seriousness, they could do so much. Like we saw in Fear Season 2 with our group going to Mexico and Nick exploring the city of Tijuana and overcoming the searing heat of the desert, the show could also explore the harshness of life in the outback. It's something I would have wanted Fear to explore more, and this show has the chance to do so. It also has a unique chance to show us some fresh but realistic situations that could happen to our characters. Saltwater crocs and tiger sharks line most bodies of water from rivers to sea, and spiders and snakes are notoriously deadly in this part of the world. I'd love to see our characters interact with some of the wildlife in Australia, and also the sprawling but desolate plains that are the outback. I think this show has the chance to truly recapture the magic that this franchise once had. With the massive success that was The Last of Us Season 1, it proves there is still a huge demand for post-apocalyptic content. it just has to be executed correctly. Whilst many of the Walking Dead spin-offs suffer from viewer fatigue as they use existing and already fleshed out characters, this show wouldn't have that problem as it's totally new. And if this show is a success, then it could spawn more of its kind. In regards to a story aspect I would like to see, for me it's a no-brainer. We must see a strong family here. If you look at the peaks of The Walking Dead and Fear the Walking Dead, there is one strong correlation between the two of them. They know how to make an engaging and strong family dynamic, and it's when they start to venture from this key aspect that both series started to decline in quality and viewership numbers. But yeah, I'm incredibly excited for this project and I hope we learn more about it this year. I love the idea of the setting, and I think seeing how different countries dealt with the wildfire virus is always going to be an interesting watch. But now we've talked about the potential of the possible Walking Dead spin-off that is Bushman, let's discuss what my hopes are for the future of this franchise. I think Bushman is a massive step in the right direction for The Walking Dead. And it's funny because before it was rumoured to be in pre-production, I was very vocal about my desires for a fresh new spin-off show with totally new characters. And although my idea was slightly different as it was based in Japan, I think Australia probably makes more sense due to the language barrier. But my idea was to see a university trip to Japan with American students who end up getting stranded in the busiest city on earth, that being Tokyo, on Monument Day. A class of around 14 students and 3 or so teachers would have to figure out how to navigate and escape the sprawling city that is Tokyo, whilst overcoming the language barrier and also the dead. They would venture out of the city into the drop-dead gorgeous rolling hills that litter the Kanto region. Not only would this have the potential to be visually stunning, but also give us an interesting group dynamic as most of these people aren't family. I guess you could have like a brother and sister in there, but most of them wouldn't be related. So it would pose the question, how willing to save one another would they be? My idea would be an ethical question about humanity and allow us to explore a new part of the world in the Walking Dead franchise. Hell, with Daryl and Carol making it to France, maybe in the end some of these characters could even make it back to America. Or is that where we draw the line? But who knows? But that is my hypothetical idea for a spin-off show that I was slightly hoping for. But I thought I'd reach out to fellow YouTuber DNADZ to find out what his hopes for the future of the franchise were, so let's hear from him now.
What's going on, guys? DNADZ here. What I would like to see for the future of The Walking Dead is a possible reunion of all the main Walking Dead characters in a season 2 of The Ones Who Live. In my opinion, this makes the most sense because it would be hard to bring back that original Walking Dead show title and have it be a season 12. The Ones Who Lives does not necessarily apply to just Rick and Michonne and can actually be a segue into a collective final season for the universe. It even makes more sense when looking at the original TWD finale where every character says we are the ones who live. Although I don't necessarily have a villain in mind for this season, I would want it to bring back the OG season 1 and 2 vibes the series had, and have it focused on Rick Grimes as the main character. As well, seeing everyone reunite like Rick and Daryl and also with Negan would be awesome. This, in my opinion, would be a great way to end the universe. But the sad reality is that the Walking Dead universe will probably continue for as long as it can into various unimportant spin-offs.
A big thank you to DNADZ for coming on the channel. His link will be available at the very top of the description, so make sure you go and check his channel out right after finishing this video. So, the next couple of years, in my opinion, are absolutely crucial for the Walking Dead franchise, because it will ultimately determine whether it remains as a major pop culture force, or starts to fade into the background. We are now at the point where these new spin-offs have to succeed in order to keep the new generation of fans engaged, as well as the old. It's going to be a huge challenge as the franchise doesn't want to start feeling more stagnant than it already has. I mean, take the MCU and Star Wars for example. It's basically make or break time for The Walking Dead, as for years the franchise has sat alone for over a decade as the dominant post-apocalyptic show. There was nothing that even came close to it. But now, it's under real threat. From The Last of Us, a strong season 1 and a very hyped season 2 dropping this year could put The Walking Dead under real pressure, and they must prove that they still have something unique to offer. And although this is very exciting for us fans, to have 2 amazing TV shows battling it out, this also puts real pressure on AMC, which I think could be a good thing. Now, the next point would categorically never happen, especially after all the legal battles, but if I was AMC, I'd throw every single penny I had at Frank Darabont in an attempt to get him to try and lead this new spin-off project, as I think it would just be insane. Just imagine the quality and the storylines that man could cook up. I mean, we have a living case study that is season 1 of The Walking Dead, which is one of the best seasons in TV history. But yeah, there's probably more chance of me winning the lottery than this ever happening. And finally, the last point of this video, I wanted to touch upon the possibility of a new Walking Dead animated show. Early last year, we found out news that foundations had already been laid for a comic book accurate adaptation of The Walking Dead. Now, the creator of The Walking Dead, Robert Kirkman, is very vocal about how much he wants this to happen, but there's one problem, and it's a pretty huge one. AMC hold the rights to The Walking Dead, and they aren't that interested in doing an animated series right now. But Kirkman is optimistic and says that if he ever gets the rights back to the show, it will be the top of his list. And with comic book adaptations such as Invincible doing so well as of late, it feels like a matter of time before we get this. Not only would this show be a lot darker than the live action, but it would have a totally different storyline in some parts. I'd be so excited to see the unfiltered governor and the serial killer in the prison hit our screens. And it feels like after they wrap up the storyline from the main show, we very well could see this shoot up the list in priority for AMC. But yeah, let me know what you guys want in the future from the Walking Dead franchise down below in the comments, whether it's a season 12, a Ones Who Live season 2, an animated series, or even a totally new spin-off. But like I said, I think the next couple of years are absolutely crucial for this franchise, and I really hope they can step up to the challenge. But thank you all for watching today's video, and please do like and subscribe if you enjoyed, as we are on the road to 10k. But with that being said, I'll see you all next time. Goodbye.